News and Current Affairs program called Digest Friday edition as we discuss religion and the state, churches, myths and taxation. Earlier we've been with Pastor Falodun Emmanuel and we've been talking about issues as members of the ongoing National Conference, National Confab in Abuja, have voted overwhelmingly that religious bodies in Nigeria should pay tax to the federal government. We're joined now by Ishaq Akintola, and is the founder of Religious Muslim Rights Concern, as well as Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Lagos State University. Thank you, sir, for finding time to join us today.
My pleasure.
What the arguments put forward for the concept of taxing religious bodies in Nigeria is that despite the 1954 law banning political campaigning by tax-exempt groups, many churches and mosques are clearly political and therefore should not be receiving tax exemptions. How do you react to that?
That would be too general. I don't think it's fair to say all religious groups or churches or mosques that all of them have been politically inclined. We want to face facts as they are. Facts are sacred. Mosques have not been involved in any campaigns, any political campaigns. But for instance, we are in Lagos State now. I am aware that Christians in Lagos have come out boldly to say they want a Christian governor. That is politicization of religion, or you call it religious politics. Muslims have not come out, have not said that. We've never made any statement asking for a Muslim governor or something, or Muslim president.
Oh, what you're saying?
So it's been the other way around. So if we're saying we want to tax religious houses, religious groups, organizations, on the basis of their involvement in politics, then it goes to the churches.
So what you're saying is that the churches are more political, speak, than mosques.
And they have come, and the evidence is there. It's in the papers. It's on television. You can't quote Muslims asking for any political slot, asking for anybody to become governor. They've not done that. They've not asked for anybody becoming president. Muslims have maintained a very low profile with regards to politics. They've been, you can say, apolitical.
All right,
So,
sir. No,
Pastor,
okay.
just a minute, Branson. He has said categorically that you people are responsible for the politicizing of religious bodies in Nigeria. How do you react to that?
Well, the issue of religion is peculiar to mankind, and we are all free to choose whatever religion we intend to practice. Now, coming to what has been said, I don't completely agree. It is true that Christians were saying, some of the Christian leaders, I heard that too, it was in the news, were asking for a Christian governor. I think it is just expressing desires. If you trace and look at the records of governors in Lagos State in particular, you will discover that it has been towards the Muslim religion. And so if the Christians say, okay, let some Christians too have a shot, I don't think that has anything to do with taxation or non-taxation. In this country, you remember the Abiola era, where we have two Muslims on the ticket of both the president and the vice. Abiola was overwhelmingly voted for by Christians. So that shouldn't divide us in any way. If the Christians say, okay, we desire to have a Christian governor, it's just expressing their desire. And that desire can only be fulfilled by going to the ballot. It doesn't become a law until the people go to the ballot to vote before we know who becomes the governor or any other political office for that matter. So being a Christian does not mean you cannot express yourself. You cannot tell the world what you desire to have in your country.
Okay, Mr. Ishaq, let's look at the issue of taxation generally, because what the National Conference is saying, they're not limiting it to both Christian or Muslim, or Muslim. They're putting it to, sorry, they're saying it's for both Muslims and Christian. Now, if you look at the Muslim organization as well as the Christian organization, they have some level of income. Now, would you say it's totally right for government to introduce taxation to religious organization as a whole?
Well, you see, whatever government wants to do, let government do. What I believe is it cannot be, there cannot be a kind of generalization of the taxation policy. You tax people on the basis of their income. And of course, I want to say that when you look at the clerics, Christian clerics, Muslim clerics, I'm talking about imams, you would describe the imams on the average as poor citizens. And you cannot say that of Christian clerics. Imams don't own, choppers, helicopters. They don't own jets. And we know Christian clerics in this country who own more than 4, 5 jets, private jets. The masses continue to suffer in abject poverty. The leaders, the religious leaders, swim in words of foreign, currencies. So they are stupendously rich. If you are rich, you should not evade tax. So if government wants to, you see, the delegates of the National Conference who voted overwhelmingly, they are not idiots for taxation of the religious houses. And let them go ahead and tax. After all, it's the property I have or the money I have that you can tax. You don't tax, you don't base your taxation on nothing. Anything based on nothing is nothing. So I think we should advise religious leaders to be less flamboyant. They flash their wealth, they display it with impunity. Thousands of Nigerian graduates over the years, 10, 12 years ago, who graduated are yet to get jobs. And yet our religious leaders, they celebrate birthdays overseas and transport friends, hundreds of friends there. It's not, I think it is a nonchalant attitude
In other words,
to the suffering of the Jamahir, the masses of this country.
In other words, are you saying the Muslim community generally should be exempted from taxation?
I haven't said that. I said let it be general, but it must be based on what the mosques have, and must be based on what the churches have. Nobody should try to evade it.
So you're saying categorically that you have no problems with
I don't have a problem with taxation of religious bodies. It's just that even the government, has it any moral justification for taxing religious houses? How well have they managed the resources of this country? What have they done about those who have been politicians who have been accused of corruption? Where is our $20 billion? We asked for $20 billion that was missing, and then we were faced with fuel scarcity within weeks. And every Nigerian suffered. We started saying, no, we're not asking for that money anymore. Just give us fuel and forget about the $20 billion. So corruption is so widespread, and government is looking the other way. Desani, the minister, said about the House of Reps probe the other day, about 3 days ago, that they couldn't probe her because Mr. President has not approved probe. Mr. President can be probed. The Zani can be probed. Mr. President does not own the singular power, the monopoly of approval of probes. So the House is speaking for the people. We voted them there. And Desani is wrong if she thinks it's only if the president approves a probe that she can be probed.
It's all right. Let's get back to this taxation issue. You seem to agree with the government, or perhaps with members of the ongoing national confab, that religious bodies should be taxed. But what's the fate of small mosques and small churches who are already struggling for survival, and then you bring in the issue of taxation.
Very simple. If you have nothing to hide, put your cards on the table. Don't hide your property. Don't hide your money. If you don't have any money, I am a teacher. I'm a school teacher. I'm a university teacher, and everybody knows my salary. If you see me in 20 million naira bungalow building, you should ask questions. So this is what should apply in Nigeria. If you see me riding these very big vehicles, you should ask questions. But Nigerians celebrate corruption. Nigerians celebrate impunity, recklessness. Nigerians celebrate extravagance. We wed, we overspend money. We bury the dead, we overspend money. And yet we ignore our young ones who are suffering, who are yet to get jobs. I think we should face what's on ground. That's why we have widespread violence, Boko Haram, Niger Delta militancy. People are being kidnapped because we have ignored those who are hungry. We have ignored those who are homeless.
Right.
The bridges are all filled with people who don't have homes. They sleep there. And government is doing nothing.
Pastor, would you agree that this tax break given to mosques and churches has any way restricted the freedom of speech, especially when it comes to political candidates, elections in the country?
Well, let me quickly respond to what he said about the flamboyant ministers as regarding taxing the church generally. Like I said earlier, there is a difference between the churches and the mosques and the individuals. When you run a business, you are expected to pay tax on the business. But for the church or for the mosque as an entity, the contributions that are meant for the church should not be taxed. That's my position. But the individuals, the pastors, like he said, who has a shopper, who has business, who travels around, of course, there are agencies that has the right to question and query the source of your wealth. Where is the money coming from? Where are you getting these resources? But that is different to the purse of the church, because the purse of the pastor should not be the purse of the church. No pastor, and I believe no imam, has the singular right to the resources of that establishment. There should be a group, there should be a department that handles the money. So we should separate the two. We should separate the pastors from the church. If a pastor is assumed to be flamboyant and is living larger than life, and they believe something is wrong somewhere, there are agencies.
How do we separate the pastors from the church?
The purse, the account of the pastor, the money that comes to the account of the church is different to the account of the pastor. Like he said, he works with the university. The university has our own account. He has his own personal account. That's what I'm saying. That is where we should be able to draw the line between the mosque and the imam, between the church and the pastor. Now, coming to the issue of politics, governance is for people, by the people. It doesn't matter whether you are a Muslim or you are a Christian. As long as you are part of the society, you have a right to make valuable contribution. So if a Christian or a Muslim sees a need to be involved, to contribute, to serve, unfortunately, that is the reverse. Because many of our politicians will say, I want to serve. But then they just serve themselves. Okay? If you want to serve as a Christian, nothing stops you from getting involved in politics. I agree with him completely that even the scripture supports and recommends living a moderate life. There are people that overspend generally across the board, even Muslims, even Christians, just people. There are people, and it has to do with culture. That sometimes we just believe until we do things in a very elaborate manner and we get everybody talking about it, we have not done it. It's a general thing. And I think it's one of the responsibilities of the leaders of the church in this regard, to teach the people about modesty, about putting money on things that are of value. And the pastors should lead by example. I agree with that. I said it earlier, that there are some few cases, but pastors should not be generalized. To be just, they are just rich, they are just feeding fat on the income of the members. In most cases, it is not true.
Now, one of the issues raised by the National Conference is the fact that they've also, now it's still subject to ratification, that they'll not be sponsoring the going to the holy pilgrimages, like talking about the Jerusalem and Mecca. Now, let's start with you, Mr. How would you react to that? Do you think now? Maybe I should say, how has this holy pilgrimages affect Nigeria in all?
Holy pilgrimages are, of course, mandatory on individuals, on faithfuls. In the religion of Islam, for instance, it is the 5th pillar. And if there's no way you'll be a Muslim without aspiring to ensure that you achieve that objective. It's that goal, a spiritual goal that you don't want you don't want to miss. You want to make sure that you succeed in it. To that extent, and as citizens of Nigeria, if you happen to be a Muslim, sentiments apart, your government has a role to play, particularly because you cannot perform pilgrimage in Abuja National Mosque. You have to go outside the country. And once you are going outside the country, the responsibility falls on your government. You need a visa, you need a passport, and your father cannot give you a passport. Your family cannot give you a passport. Your employer cannot give you a passport. It has to be immigrations, and that is government. And as you travel out, the issue of diplomacy sets in. Ministry of Foreign Affairs must be involved. Whether the minister is a Muslim or a Christian or whatever, it doesn't matter. It must be involved. It must know how many Nigerians are going out. How do they fare over there? So you can't remove the hands of government from the issue of pilgrimage. However, we have to draw a line of demarcation between the needful and the peripheral. When I say the needful, I'm talking about what is objectives, what must be done, and what we just see that, oh, they are doing it, some people are doing it, so let's join them. With due respect to my Christian neighbors, the Bible does not command pilgrimage. And I challenge anybody who will come with the evidence to show that the Bible says you must go on pilgrimage. In the same way that the Quran says you must go on pilgrimage, because it's well known, widely known all over the world that the Muslims' 5th pillar is pilgrimage to Mecca. And for decades, only the Muslims were performing pilgrimage. I think it was because our Christian neighbors started criticizing the idea. Government was spending too much only on the Muslims. I think what government needs to do is look for some other ways of doing something for the Christians when they need something. We do not need to create another window, another avenue that's not really there. You see, if Israel might be interested. Definitely it will be interested. But Nigerians should know that this is what is mandatory. This is what should be done. It is not necessary that Christians should go on pilgrimage. But individuals who desire to go on, you will call it pilgrimage, to Jerusalem, even though it is not mandatory, I say it's not mandatory because it's not in the Bible that they should go. So, they can make arrangements for that.
Sir,
those who are going are not as many as the Muslims. Let me finish.
Okay.
The Christians who are going to Jerusalem are not as many as the Muslims who are going. I don't envy them. And in fact, Muslims have not come out to say, no, stop the Christians from going. Or government should not support them. I think if government is supporting...
Really, that's not even the issue of discussion here. The proposal made at the floor of the National Conference is that government should hand off sponsors.
I say no.
Government officials.
I say no.
On pilgrimage.
What government should do is caution itself Government officials, government itself has been the one that has been corrupting the pilgrimage issue. They send thugs, they send prostitutes, they send political affiliates, they send court jesters. And over there, both on the Christian and Muslim side, these people are the ones who constitute problems for the officials over there and for the Nigerian, for other Nigerian pilgrims, because their behavior are so dissociated from their calling. So government should mind what it does.
It's all right.
Leave the religious groups alone to arrange pilgrimage.
It's all right.
Do whatever it can to support it, but stop sponsoring its own officials or political parties too. The local government, the political parties who are in power in the local government, they will pick so and so. Even for Muslim pilgrimage, they will pick non-Muslims and give them Muslim names. This is one of the things our group has been opposing. It is immoral and it destroys more than builds.
Pastor, what are your thoughts along this line that government should hands off a financial sponsor of government officials on pilgrimage? Because that's exactly the issue here.
That the government is involved in sponsoring Christians and Muslims to attend or to go to pilgrimage is just a strategy for balance. Over the years, we all know that the issue of religion, when not well carefully handled, can be volatile. Little matter can cause very big crisis. So I think for over some time, there have been this, need for balance. It affects almost every of decisions that is taken in Nigeria. All right? So, but on this issue of that the government should withdraw the sponsorship, I think it's not necessary. But it should be looked into, like he rightly suggested or he rightly said, that sometimes most of these government officials who are in position to determine who goes to the pilgrimage just pick and choose people from their own, groups, or somebody who is not even a Christian, somebody who is not even committed to the Lord, or somebody who is not even a Muslim, like he said. And sometimes they sell these slots. Okay, I have 4 slots, you have 4 slots, and they sell the slots and they get the money. Now, those are the things that are wrong in this matter. On that, maybe the Bible did not make it mandatory for Christians to attend Jerusalem or to go on pilgrimage. That is not the issue. Jerusalem or Israel is the original place where every issue and story that we have in the scriptures happened. Now, when you have the opportunity to go to those places, it gives you an advantage. It authenticates what you've been reading. Okay, you've all these years been reading about this place, about that place, and you have the opportunity to get there. So, of course, yes, it was not a commandment that you must go to Jerusalem. But, of course, it's a very good thing to do, for you to go there and see things for yourself and then strengthen your faith in the Lord. So, if you have the privilege to go to Jerusalem, wonderful. There is nothing wrong about that. And if the government says, okay, for the Christians, we'll support as many of you that want to go this way, and for the Muslims, we'll support as many of you that want to go that way, it's all right. There are people that goes to Mecca on their own accounts, and there are people that goes to Jerusalem from their own purse. But if the government is going to be involved, let genuine leaders in the from the Muslim religion be involved. Let it be that it is the people that ought to go that are going.
Now, one of the things we also need to consider that we also need to understand that the delegates in the national conference, for me, I want to believe that they are very intelligent and smart people. They would have considered a lot of things before they came out with some of the resolutions they have come out with, even though it has not been ratified. And one of the areas I want us to look at it is it's from how impactful has this visit to the pilgrimage from Muslim and Christians affect Nigeria as a nation?
like I said, let me speak for the Christians. When you go to Jerusalem or you visit Israel and some of these historic places, it deepens your understanding of the scripture. It helps you to know God better. Now, the connection between man and God helps him to behave the way God wants him to behave. And when somebody behaves in the way of God, definitely it will rub on the nation. When righteousness, when integrity, when honesty becomes part of our lifestyle, when love, true love, is being, manifested in people's life as a result of their relationship with God. Like one of the core teachings of Jesus, he said, love your neighbor as yourself. When these things manifest in our lives, it rubs on the society. It removes hatred, it removes dislike, it helps us relate well, it helps us achieve better results.
Okay, let me feel the point of Mr. Ishaq.
I think, let me start from the angle of the moral angle for government. If government has the temerity to ask churches to pray for the nation, they have the audacity to ask mosques to pray for Nigeria, then they must be prepared to render some services to the churches and the mosques, to the Christians and the Muslims. On that note, government will have no moral justification to say, no, it's taking its hands off the issue of pilgrimage. It's no longer sponsoring anybody. But what government should do is stop the issue of the idea of officials, its own officials, usurping the rights of the pilgrims, like when during pilgrimage, either to Jerusalem or Mecca, there is what you call, I can't remember, is it diplomatic representation, official status. You have certain cards or ID cards that are given to you. The visa is different when you are an official. And so that when you get to the Holy Land, the officials over there, they treat you separately. They don't just lump you up with just anybody that is anybody that is nobody, I mean. So, but what happens in Nigeria now is it's the officials of government who take these cards. If the Muslims are given 96, the Christians are given 96 official status. The government officials will take 92 and give the Muslims 4. Government officials on the Christian side will take 92 and give the Christians 4. What I'm saying is, at the end of the day, the officials appointed by the Pilgrims Board of the Christians and the Muslims will have no such cards. They will not be able to enter certain places. They will not be able to perform their duties. The implication is when you get to Israel, if you have the official status, you can move from place to place to organize the pilgrims and take care of them. If the same thing applies if you go to Mecca and you are given the official status, but you are robbed of that same official status even though you are appointed as an official when you go to Mecca, because the greedy Nigerian officials, selfish Nigerian officials have arrogated to themselves all the official cards and diplomatic whatever that have been given to Nigerians.
It's all right. Let's quickly touch on other issues that came up at the floor of the National Confab. In addition to the issue of taxation, also was the issue of building religious organizations in residential places and how it affects noise pollution and the rest. In Lagos, for instance, the Lagos state government has gone to the extent of closing down certain mosques and churches that have created noise nuisance in the community. How do you think all of these can be worked on so that there will be a cordial relationship between these churches and mosques and the people living in that community?
When Lagos State came up with this noise pollution law initially, it was resisted. It was misunderstood. But I remember that the Lagos PFN, Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, took it up and they went to the State House of Assembly and for a period of time had interaction and they were able to look at the issues, because there are facts that some of our churches disturb the communities. Sometimes the vigils, sometimes the services are so noisy. You have loudspeakers outside the building of the church, and everything coming from the church goes out to the streets. And when that agreement was reached among the leadership of the churches, there's this education, enlightenment, that okay, your service is supposed to be meant for the people in your building, so reduce your noise. And that began to take effect. So it's a law that is reasonable, that if the other man wants to sleep, your prayers should not disturb the people that want to have their rest. But at the same time, the church also, or the mosque also, should not be completely stopped from, worshiping, from serving the Lord. So by and large, this has helped. There's a cooperation between the government of Lagos State and the churches. We are working on it. If you notice, you discover that most of the on-speakers that used to be outside the buildings of the churches are no longer there, but the speakers within the church. It's something that will take some time before it gets to the level where the sounds are completely soundproof. Of course, in a situation where the church becomes a complete nuisance, it's not acceptable. But my only worry about this issue of mosque and church is the part of the government to order noise or other kind of noises you have in every other part of Lagos. Go to these junctions, the bus stops, you have these guys selling just some few CDs, they have big speakers, and they will play from morning till night. The bus stops, the noises are there, and not much is being done in that area. Okay? But as for the churches in Lagos State, I think there's cooperation going on.
Well, rounding up now, let's just have your opinion on that issue, and ultimately how religion can indeed stem the tides of all the challenges, security, corruption, and all the issues affecting the nation.
I think we need to go further. Government needs to be very serious about its fight against noise pollution. Noise pollution is very dangerous. It can impair health. It can cause accidents, because you want to travel next day and you are sleeping and somebody is making noise and it's a night vigil or an asalatu and they won't allow you to sleep. Next morning when you wake up and you still have to travel and you are driving, it could endanger your life. I think it's not even the noise in the churches or the mosques alone. It should go beyond that. Take a ride anywhere in Lagos. Or take a bus from Ibadan coming to Lagos, or from Akure coming to Benin City, and somebody will stand up in the bus and start preaching. The preaching is disturbing. It makes noise, and it keeps on and keeps telling stories. Unfortunately, it happens in every 100, in 99 places among the Christians. Christian preachers are very overzealous. They take over commercial buses. It's not done in civilized places. We want Nigeria to become El Dorado, but we are pulling it down and pulling it back. People are in the bus who are planning their movement for the day. When I was in the university, I studied in a foreign country. In the bus, I would not be looking out the window. I have a small note in my pocket. I bring it out. I start jotting notes. I bring my notebooks. I read. I bring my textbooks. I read in the bus.
If
you are riding up, I am riding up on noise pollution. I think we should put a stop to it. It should not be. It should not be legislation for churches alone or mosques. It should be legislation even in commercial buses. Nobody should be allowed to preach. The law is there. You should not be talking to the driver while in a commercial vehicle.
Thank you very much for your time. We've been speaking with Ishaq Akintola, and no doubt is the founder of the Muslim Rights Concern, as well as Dean of Faculty of Arts for the Lagos State University, as well as Pastor Falodun Emmanuel. Pastor, thank you very much for your time, and he is the General Overseer of Christ Salvation Victory Mission International. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time, and we hope that subsequently you'll find time to join us again. Bronson, it's been an interesting conversation and discussion here. as it is now, the National Confab already has voted for it overwhelmingly. Of course, we are waiting to see whether these issues will be subject to a referendum or will take it to the floor of the National Assembly for ratification. But whatever comes out of it, probably churches and mosques should get set to part away with some of their funds.
As a matter of fact, we've heard from both parties. I think everybody's ready to take it in good faith. But however, Nigeria is a country, we have to build it, and let's hope that, of course, and you can't take away the importance of religion. We hope that they will work together and, of course, build the nation. But that's a wrap on our show today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Would be a marathon show, 3 hours. Do join us then, as we'll have so much time to discuss issues that concern the nation. My name is Brownson Uwana.
And I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Coming up shortly is the news of the hour. Stay with us.
Nigerians continue to
travel the city of Lagos.
There is still a one level of
Be the first to know
CORETV news
from the north, south, east, west, and around Africa. We break the news.
one Nigeria.
Now you can catch all the actions live as the news spreads. We are CORETV News,
Welcome to CORETV,
a 24-hour news station.